Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is the warnings that were there 20 years ago about the behaviour of Nicola Sturgeon. Now, this story, as I say, goes back 20 years, and it's a story told by a woman called Dorothy-Grace Elder. Now, Dorothy, from Dundee, was a journalist first and then became an MSP in the very, very first Parliament in Scotland in 1999. She was close second in her constituency, but obtained her seat in what was to be Holyrood via the Glasgow regional list. And she served from 1999 to 2002 as an SNP MSP, and then served the last year and a bit overtime as an independent after standing down from the party in 2002. Now, as a journalist, she was worked for the Herald and some other papers, and went into TV reporting Scotland, and was very much an investigative journalist, which was unusual for a female at the time, and she was one of the trailblazers in her field. And then she joined the political platform, and she was announced in June 98 as a candidate for the Scottish Parliament, and the elections took place in 99. As I said, she stood there in Glasgow Baillieston, and she gained a 17% swing to the SNP former Labour heartland based on the previous election, general election figures. But also she did win a seat outright. She did get to become one of the list MSPs representing Glasgow, and she was a supporter of Alex Neil when he was trying to be the leader back in 2000. And she left the party after some issues she had with the actual running of the party, and in her time she became close-ish to Sturgeon, not on a personal basis, but on a working basis. And she wrote about this back in 2021. Now, obviously, it's a story back in 2002 when it first happened. But she wrote about this back in 2021 when she said that Sturgeon had refused to speak to her. She claimed that it was reported to the Chief Whip after a woman MSP and one of Nicola Sturgeon's chums discovered it. Had privately asked a women's group for advice on male bullying in politics. She was set to be disciplined. It made her sick, so she walked out. And that story hit the papers in 2021. And that's a story I want to concentrate on because it gives you some bizarre insights into how the party operated. And the warning signs were there 20 years ago, and they were cemented 3.5 years ago when this story was printed, but hardly any people know about it. It seems to have just been a story one day, forgot about the next, but I think it's really worth having a recap on it. So the story went into a number of places, and I found a copy of her article she wrote in the newspaper. I think it was a Herald. I've got a photograph of the column, not the actual link to it. But her headline that she wrote was "The party is ruled by fear. Only her cronies survive." Nicola Sturgeon is a hugely gifted politician brought low by arrogance and pettiness. Excessive secrecy and resentment of others has harmed the SNP government, which could have been great. What is mistaken for discipline is really fear. The party is riddled with dirty tricks. The salmon saga is only part of it all. No daylight is allowed to shine, no challenges by different views. Few outsiders sussed that Nicola's ego was as big as salmon's. She has never been a team player. She was 28 in May 1999 when we were both elected for Glasgow as the first 129 parliamentarians in 300 years. So young, but set in her ways, ignoring those who weren't cronies. I was delighted that a woman might be top in future, but she didn't speak to me. in 3 years I was in the SNP group and shared the same office. What had I done to her? Nothing. The rumour is, my trouble was I'd got a 17% swing in the East End and might win outright if I wasn't driven out before the 2003 election. But I was no threat to her as a much older woman with no political ambitions. Campaigns are my thing. I first became a target for regular harm when I complained about male bullying. I was determined women should not be treated badly and raised the cases at an SNP group meeting. I was reported to the chief whip after a woman MSP and one of Nicola's chums discovered I had privately asked a women's group for advice on male bullying in politics. I was set to be disciplined. It made me sick and I walked out. Margot MacDonald also got the deep freeze treatment. Nowadays, little seems to have changed. Joanna Cherry MP revealed Nicola has only had one conversation with her over all those years. Cherry was cheated out of a chance to stand for Holyrood. The candidate is now Angus Robertson. I'm a long-term feminist, but I didn't think of Nicola as a feminist until she insisted she was one. Nicola always seemed to be in charge and John Swinney still seems scared of her. He is also to blame for the current crisis through his weakness. There are still two classes of SNP MPs and MSPs, and those are protected pals and the unprotected. Anyone not a leader's pal. It's a bit like the 18th century court where people are judged on how low they curtsy or bow. Now non-crawlers got horrible treatment. You don't need to have done anything. Just breathe. Now, those words were written by a woman in 2021 about her own experiences some 20 years ago. But although the newspapers tend not to be online from 2002, I would imagine there were stories of the situation back then and then reminded in 2021. But I'm going to cover another Nicola story. I covered a story about Nicola Sturgeon a few months back that nobody known, or very few people knew about previously. And it was a story where a man who was up for fraud for the second time went to court with a letter on his sentencing day, pleading from not to be given a custodial sentence. And that letter was written by Nicola Sturgeon, who the man admitted never spoke to. So pin that up, and I'm going to do another video later on today about Nicola and her dramatic fall from grace in the legal profession. A story, again, a few know about, but not that many. So when you piece all these stories together, which will be 3 by the time I'm finished, the hints were always there. Her character was always in question. But she managed to fool quite a lot of people, which I feel was reminiscent of a little Austrian guy in Germany in the 30s. He managed to convince a lot of people it was something other than what he really was. And that might seem like a harsh comparison. And in many ways it is. But it's a comparison nonetheless. So I'll put a link up here to the one I done a few months ago about Nicola and her amazing story with the guy that was a fraudster. And I'll put up another, it's a third story about her previous in the next few, maybe tonight or maybe tomorrow morning. So stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe and the notification button. Put your comments, but we'll always enjoy reading people's opinions on the video and the topics. But most importantly, like your Nicola Sturgeon, the people around in the SNP that have been there for 20 odd years. Not them, but
everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.